turned 50, y'all, and I started a podcast.
Really, age is just a number. It comes down to how we choose to live and the choices we make in our life, and those things accumulate.
Don't let the programming of life keep you from doing things every single day that make you happy.
When we feel good, it's easy to think good.
Life is not happening to you. You are your life. You are happening to your life. I turned 50, y'all, and I started a podcast. And I'm going to tell you my story. And I have my emotional support friend in the room, Ashley. So you may imagine I'm talking to somebody, and that's kind of who's here helping me. It felt a little strange to talk to an empty room. So I turned 50. I'm starting a podcast. It's an opportunity for me to share some stories about my life and my perspective of my life and how I'm doing and where I'm going. And it allows me to talk about myself for hours on end into a microphone. And so, yes, I'm a little bit blissed out about it. So I don't know if I've ever told you the story, but it was like a couple months ago. I was at my physical therapist. And she is, I think, in her early 30s, and she's got this group of women that she's really close with, that she went to college with, and they're all like pregnant or having babies or getting married and all of that. And she's really close with them, and she was sharing with me that one of her friends who just had a baby, and she flew out there to see the baby. And she said that when she saw this child and held this child, that she had this love for this little being that she never knew that she could feel that way about a child. And my first thought was, oh my God, this isn't even your kid, you know? But then, and then also that was really beautiful. And, you know, and then the next thought I had was how when I was born, or when most children are born, their parents, and specifically I was thinking about my mom, how she must have felt, or maybe she might have felt when I was born, or when she was pregnant, that she felt a different love, you know? And thought about, you know, having a life now, having this child, and having, you know, this life that you were in charge of and responsible for, you know, for at least 18 years, I guess. And just that expansion. And then it flipped back to me that, oh my God, I'm 50. And this feeling that my physical therapist is having about her little, let's say, niece or goddaughter, her friend's child, my mom might have had that about me 50 years ago. And like, holy shit, that's a long time ago. And I can't believe I'm 50 years old. And I mean, my mom's dead. And that, you know, and so this cascade of revelations that there's, you know, more time, way more time probably behind me that there is in front of me. And this realization of how quickly life goes by. And it's this clarity that comes, this sober clarity that comes, that this experience is limited. You know, and certainly nothing's guaranteed. Not even the next day is guaranteed. And so I think that was, you know, a really defining moment for my realization about just the finiteness of life, which, you know, I'm trying to my best to transform that into gratitude and appreciation and excitement. And you know, that's why we're here. That's why I'm here, is that this is part of my transformation, and appreciation of the time I do have. The other element that kind of creates a sense of urgency for me, and it has for a very long time, is I've lost both my parents to pancreatic cancer. And my father, my biological father, he died when he was 49 years old. So I was, I believe, 22 at the time. And it was, surprising. And, of course, you don't ever expect your parent, I think it's always difficult to lose a parent, but you certainly don't expect it when you're 22 years old that your parent, one of your parents, is going to get sick and die. I mean, from the time that he told me he was sick to the time he died was about 3 months, and I was there with him. I, was there with him every day. I basically quit school for a semester and went and lived with him and spent time with him. And I don't know if you could say I really took care of him, but I was there with him, and it was really, really challenging. And so, and then my mom died when I was 43. She was 65 of pancreatic cancer. So I now have, two parents who've died of the same horrible disease. And so, yeah, as I think pretty much once my mom died, and I'm in my mid 40s, and I'm just really coming to grips with, nothing is guaranteed. And I remember on my 45th birthday, I had a bunch of friends come and stay in my parents' house in California. Had a kind of a group long weekend together, and I remember the theme, or at least the theme in my brain of the weekend was, I'm dying and so are you. So we better get the fuck on with it. We better make the most of it. And ever since then, this whole thing about I'm dying, it's kind of morbid, but it's how I'm able to confront what could be terror, at, the likelihood of also developing pancreatic cancer. So I've spent most of my adult life, doing things to not get pancreatic cancer, but, there is that hereditary component that you can't deny. So that's another kind of thread that's running through this idea of being able to take advantage of every day that you have. And along with that, in the last 3 years, I think the whole world has gone through incredible things with COVID. But in the summer of 2019, 6 months before COVID, I got a divorce, and I had been married. I always get this wrong. I think it was 8 years, might have been 9. But so let's call it, I was with my ex-husband for a good solid decade, and I was 48 years old, and I found myself getting a divorce. And I never thought I would be divorced. I mean, I never thought I would not be with my husband. I absolutely saw the rest of my life with this person, and there wasn't really any entertaining in my mind about that not happening. But ultimately, after going through, the exercise of trying to stay together and trying to work it out and trying to solve the problems, ultimately I decided to choose my happiness and to choose to save myself. That's basically what I did. I chose to save myself. And it was so hard. It was so hard to let go of that life draft or and let go of my person. And I'll probably do a whole podcast on the just going through divorce and what that looks like or what it looked like for me, but I did it. And it was one of those decisions where it's so difficult leading up to the decision and stressful. And then when you finally make the decision, it's immediately clear that that's exactly the decision you should have made. So that's what I did. I found myself in the summer of 2019, divorced. It was amicable and unchallenged. And so I was able to kind of, move through that without any additional stress. And what that brought for me, that clearing, the clearing, I remember the summer I was in Reno and I was with the dogs, and it felt like there was this wide open space around me all of a sudden. And all of this energy and life force that was newly available to me. And I don't know. I mean, I remember looking at it like this vast expanse of possibility that I could then create and make up whatever I want. Like all of a sudden, oh my God, I thought I was going to completely have this life. And this is what it felt like. And this is what it looked like. And then all of a sudden, I like to say, I jumped timelines. I completely jumped timelines. And I all of a sudden had a completely new life and a completely new possibility, and the ability to make up whatever I wanted about that life. And this whole time I was starting to absorb a bunch of new information. I had decided I needed to go get away to have a retreat at Canyon Ranch down in Tucson. And so I did that for 5 days and had a tarot reading, which I'm really not into, but I did it because I was there, and an astrology reading, and I was hypnotized, and I did water therapy, and I did meditation, and I did hiking and drum circles. I mean, this place is amazing if you've never been. And I remember I started getting into listening to podcasts at the time. And on the way down there, I listened to a couple of things, one of which was the Goop podcast, and she was interviewing Joe Dispenza. And he was talking about his new book, Supernatural. And I've gone back and listened to that specific episode multiple times because it had such an impact on me, hearing this man talk about the possibility of what we could do with our brain and the power we have with our brain. It literally blew my mind. I mean, I can see myself in the car where I was on the road, and the feeling I had when I was listening to him speak. And I ended up buying that book, and I believe I did read some of it while I was down in the Canyon Ranch. But the other person I started listening to that summer was Jessa Reed, and I'm legitimately obsessed with this woman. I've racked my brain over the last year or so or even 2 years, just trying to remember how I ever got or ever became aware of her or her podcast. She's on her third podcast, but her first podcast was Mormon and the Meth Head. So she's a former methamphetamine addict, and she's also a comedian, and she had this partner person who was a former Mormon who was also a comedian. Anyway, they had this podcast where they talked about all kinds of things. And then she had started her own podcast called Soberish, that started off as kind of an addiction recovery podcast, but then really turned into personal transformation, mind expansion, alien, consciousness podcast. And I'm trying to remember if I started with Mormon and the Meth Head, or if I started with Soberish, and why would I start with Soberish? I mean, why would I have? I don't remember. I don't remember, but I listened to dozens and dozens and dozens of episodes of Mormon and the Meth Head. And then at some point, I just switched to Soberish and listened to all of those. And this woman is one of the most fascinating people I've ever encountered in my life. And the concepts that she was discussing and articulating about, again, consciousness, about who we are, about the access we have to ultimate abundance and creativity and life force and ascension and energy, and was incredibly transformative for me at the time of this space of openness and possibility that I had created for myself. So I set that in motion. I set that in motion by making the decision to leave the marriage and create this new life. And then I had this vast open space of possibility, and I'm able to listen to Jessa, and she's basically putting words and explanation to what is happening to me. So it's like, oh my God. And that's where I got the language of jumping timelines, was from her. And that's what I feel like I did. And that's what I now know we 100% have access to, which is jumping timelines, completely changing the trajectory that we're on at any given time. It's big, little, big, small, and everything in between. We have the ability to do that, that we have that access and that power. So that was hugely transformative for me and inspiring. Jumped a timeline. And, again, I was listening to a lot of different podcasts, and I was, at the time, I had moved out of the house I was living in, and moved in to a different location in Scottsdale. And I ended up moving in with my hairdresser at the time, my hairstylist at the time, and also my dog nanny, really, who's became my friend. But it was me, my dog nanny, my hairstylist, and my 3 dogs, basically, in this townhome in Scottsdale, Arizona. And it was like Three's Company. And I think we moved in the beginning of December of 2019. And we were having the best time. And we would sit around and make food, and we would make martinis and go out to dinner and have all kinds of fun and do all of these things. And we would have amazing conversations. So my hairstylist he's a gay man, and my friend and my dog nanny, and I'll explain the dog nanny. I had 3 dogs, and one of them is blind, and 2 of them each had surgery twice on their knees in a year period. And my old dog, Howie, was 17 years old, completely senile, in a diaper. And I'm just telling you, if there was ever a case for a dog nanny, it was my case. So don't judge. It's a real thing. And she lived with me, and I love her. She saved my life. And we became great friends. I consider her family. But she's Hispanic. So I have this adorable, young, sweet Hispanic woman, and this big, burly, gay hairstylist, so much fun. And the 3 of us just were partying our asses off, basically, all winter long. and, talking about all kinds of things. And so anyway, we thought, oh, we'll start a podcast. I want to start a podcast. I'm like, we should record these things. I had this big round dining table in the dining room, and we would sit around the table, and we'd have these conversations. We'd go on hikes together, the three of us, and we'd have these conversations. We'd be in the car together, and we'd have these conversations. And I'm like, and just the three different perspectives from three completely different, ages, genders, sexual orientations, everything was three interesting, in my opinion, perspectives. So I bought the podcast equipment. We were writing the outlines. We were doing it, and we even tested. We even had a couple of tests that we did, and then during this time, COVID hit, right? So this is December, this is January, this is February. And of course, by the end of February, the beginning of March, we're hearing about what's going on with COVID. So now we're into 2020. And also I had started dating somebody. I had been dating, and I had met someone that was, I was dating not more than once. And then COVID hit. All of a sudden COVID hit, and nobody was going to work. And we were basically on a curfew in Arizona. It wasn't that long of a curfew. It was only like a month or something. But so everything changed. We ended up not recording the podcast because we got kind of caught up in what was going on in the world, and kind of navigating through that, and doing that. So, but that was the first time that I had really gotten down the road with actually doing the podcast and recording the podcast. I felt like it was the first time I felt like I have a voice, and I have something to say, and I think it's pretty fucking funny, and it would be fun, right? It would be fun. Like, who doesn't want to? I mean, I know there's some personality types that absolutely would not want to talk into a microphone, but I mean, this personality type, I want to talk into a microphone. Like, if I could walk around with a microphone. No, I'm not really that much, but yeah, I mean, then the next thing that happened really is under COVID shutdown, we kind of all were kind of in this little bubble together. It was me and my new boyfriend, my roommates. We had our little bubble. And, for me, my experience over those next 6 months is I was falling in love, and I was completely surprised by it. I did not want that. I was not looking for that. I did not have an intention for that. But sometimes, when you clear the space, when you really, really clear the space like I did, I mean, I think that's the key. That's really the key. It's like it's like a universal law, right? If I clear the space, and I mean, I cleared the decks, you've got this tabula rasa, this empty meadow that the universe, the energy just sucks things down into that space. And there it was. There was this man, and I think I kind of fought it for a long time. There's an age difference. There's a little bit of an age difference. There's a 13-year age difference. He's younger, so there's that. And I just did not think that I wanted to be in a relationship. And then, then the world says, okay, not only did you clear the deck, so you've got this vast, magnetic sucking situation happening that's going to pull shit into your orbit. But also, oh, by the way, we're going to shut the world down. So you basically are now in a bubble with these three people and your three dogs. So, that's what happened. And we fell in love, and we're still in love, actually. And so one of the things we did while we're in that bubble is we were talking about specifically with my one roommate, the hairstylist. Okay, we'll call my hairstylist CC, or no, we'll call him CJ. 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 And my boyfriend is J. So CJ and I started talking about this idea. It was really his idea to start this app. And this idea on this app was a way to be able to connect with people in real life, in person. And the idea was that you could be at a restaurant or a bar or hiking on a mountain and send out a signal and be like, hey, I'm on Camelback, or I'm going to Camelback, or I'm at the base of Camelback, or I'm going to be going to Camelback tomorrow morning. Does anybody want to hike with me? And, or I'm sitting at, Ruth's Chris bar. I'm going to be here for the next 2 hours. I'm interested in talking about crypto. Is there anybody who wants to come meet me and have a drink? And I thought it was a great idea. And so one of the things we did while we were in lockdown is we created a business plan. So for about 6 months, we worked on this business plan. And I thought it would be a great exercise to help CJ develop this idea. And it's also kind of a lesson in how to write a business plan. And anyway, so that's what we did. And all of this to say that there's certain things that were happening that were amazing that I was engaged in, but they were pulling me away from like doing the podcast, right? Like I had the idea, we got the equipment, we set that aside, and we started doing this business plan, or I was falling in love and we were focused on that, and COVID and all of these things. So we spent like 6 months working on this business plan, and we didn't record anything on the podcast anymore. And then for the summer, I think I went up to Reno to spend time with my family in Reno for the summer. So the other thing that's been happening, so now I'm let's see. So this is 2020, the summer of 2020, and I turned 49. I turned 49, and what is happening now starting in the fall and going into 2021 is my hormones start to change, right? So the title of this episode here is I turned 50, y'all, and I started a podcast. Well, part of turning 49 and coming into 50 is going into perimenopause. Now, this is a whole subject. This is a whole like series of discussions. So I am not going to try to encapsulate the experience of perimenopause into this discussion. But let's just say, and I'm still in it. I'm still going through it. So like, I wouldn't even be able to explain the full encapsulation of what it means to have your body start turning off levers and turning levers up and down and around and flipping the lights off and on, and who knows what's going on. But, it really does affect everything. And so I'm dealing with changes in mood. I'm dealing with changes in your body changes. Your hormones are changing. The way you feel changes. The way you look changes. And it was interesting. And it's interesting, going through that also with there's so many different things that were going on at this time. To how to even put it into perspective. But I noticed my hormones were changing. I could tell things in my body were changing. I was feeling differently. And so I started reading some books, and somehow I came upon this book. I think it was because I was referred to it in a podcast, but Goddesses Never Age. Dr. Christiane Northrup, who is I don't know if she's world famous, but she's pretty famous. Like, she literally wrote the book on women's health. And when I say she wrote the book, she's written like 10 books on women's health. And one of them is Goddesses Never Age. Another one is she has a whole book just on menopause. She has another whole separate book on just the wisdom of women's bodies. And I remember reading this book the summer I was in Reno and just having my mind blown, like learning about what it's like to be a woman at this stage of my life, and learning some things for the first time ever about women's bodies and women's health and women's experience. And it was the first in a series of revelations over the last 3 years of all of the information that we are not taught as humans about women's health. And also a subset of that is women's health as they go through perimenopause and menopause, which is a whole subject obviously on its own. And so by having that as a backdrop and an inspiration and a knowledge base, that was like a jumping off point for me, feeling so inspired to kind of connect with my girlfriends, who range, most of my core girlfriends range in the age of like 43 to like maybe 56. And, with a cluster right around 50, which means we're all in menopause. We're all right before menopause. We're in it or we're done with it, but we're all in it. And I'm thinking to myself, am I the only, is this new information that I'm learning by reading this book? Is this new information to me, or it's like, does everybody else know this and I'm the only one who doesn't know this? And so I think I bought 15 copies of that book, or 10 or 15 copies of that book. And I sent it to all of my friends. I sent it to even my aunts, as if, I look back and go, they're having their younger niece send them this book, and they're 15 years older than me. Anyway, I was very inspired. And when I'm inspired, I go all in. So I bought this book, I sent it to everybody, and I was like, oh my God, this book. And then I ended up separately living in this house in Reno that I had just had for about 6 months. I had recently moved into this home, and there was a bunch of empty walls. It had a lot of gallery walls, a lot of white walls, and I was struggling with what to put on the walls for art. And I was talking with a couple of designers, and I was getting ideas from friends, and different ideas were coming about. But what I really decided is that I wanted to have these women that are in my life. I wanted them. I wanted to look at them. I wanted to look at my friends, these amazing, amazing women. I wanted them on my wall. I wanted to see them. And I thought, well, could I do some kind of art shoot to where, we come up with a theme, and so that the pictures had all the same theme, and you could hang multiple ones of them, in a block and have it be art. And one of my best friends at the time is a photographer, and an amazing photographer. And so we discussed the idea and came up with the idea that we would create a photo shoot experience for all of my girlfriends. And I had a handful of friends in Reno, a handful of friends in Scottsdale, a handful of friends in California, and I believe one of my girlfriends flew in from St. Louis, Missouri. And so we devised and organized this photo shoot experience where we would create this scene and this experience for each woman. And because I had been reading this book, Goddesses Never Age, this idea of the goddess was the theme, and we ended up calling it like we were creating a goddess photo shoot. We wanted to make them feel like a goddess. We ordered crowns for the women to wear, like multiple different crowns. They could pick a crown and use it in the photo shoot. And we designed this amazing experience, and we created basically a photo shoot roadshow. It was a 3-city tour that it was me and my photographer friend and my 3 dogs and all of the photo equipment and the lights and the background and the costumes and the crowns. Oh my gosh. We started in Reno. It was amazing. We started in Reno, and then we put everybody in this Sprinter van. We got a driver. We drove to California, and we did the photo shoot with 4 other women. I mean, we hired makeup artists, and we put out a food spread, and we had music, and it was like a whole thing. And I gifted each one of my friends the framed photo of their choice so they could hang their personal art on their wall. And then the idea was at the end of the experience, I was going to pick a photo of each of these women and hang it in my home. So we did do that. We did that. And that was an amazing experience that we did in the fall of, God, I think that was still 2020. I don't know. I'll have to get I think that was 2020 because it was 2 years ago. Yeah, it was 2 years ago. Yeah, so that was the fall of 2020. And after that, we started, I started basically a year of travel and exploration. So it was pretty interesting during that year. So I think we started off that fall. We went to Tulum for the first time. And that was amazing. And this is in the middle of COVID, right? So we've had COVID now since February, March, all the way now we're in October. And so because we're, very lucky, and I don't know if I want to use the word blessed, but we're blessed, #blessed. We were able to travel and go to amazing things. And in the spring, we were in Mexico again. And then we went on this journey. And when I say we, it was either me and my boyfriend G and our friends. And sometimes it was just G and I, going into 2021, just on a travel, like that was a year of travel. Again, starting with October, going to Tulum and experiencing that, and then just heading into 2021 with really focus on travel. And I had it in my mind for over a year that I had wanted to go to Costa Rica and do ayahuasca. And I just really had this on my on my brain-based vision board that I wanted to do ayahuasca. It was really showing up for me. It was super clear that this is what I wanted and needed to do. And I asked G if he would be open to doing that, and he said he would. So we researched different locations and different experiences. And originally we decided to go to Costa Rica in March of 2021 and work with this shaman who we had been referred to by 2 separate people. And again, and ayahuasca is a whole nother experience that I could talk about for an hour, which I will at some point, but I was called to do it. And it is a very serious there's a very serious preparation leading up to an ayahuasca ceremony. If you're going to take it seriously, or if you really want the experience that's available to you. So G and I spent about 30 days, going through a detox, no alcohol, I think we were for like 40 days. For 2 weeks prior to our ceremony, we, reduced our dairy, our meat consumption. The last week, there was no sugar, no coffee, no caffeine, no nothing, just basically whole foods, and no dairy and no meat. So the last few days was vegan with no coffee. It was really, really challenging. And then we got to Costa Rica, and at the end of the day, the day before the ceremony, we decided not to do it. There was the situation just created some anxiety about going forward with this particular ceremony in that particular location. So we ended up canceling and just stayed in Costa Rica and had a vacation, which was amazing. But immediately we booked for a facility in a different location in Costa Rica for the summer. So let's see, it was April, May, 4 months later, we traveled once again to Costa Rica, a different location, did the detox again, and we were 5 days in a location in actually it was called Soltara. I would love to tell everyone about Soltara because they take such good care of you. It was such an amazing experience. So, we're able to take this time and explore the world, and have these experiences and really expand on this kind of seeker's journey. And it was such an amazing experience that entire year. But again, instead of kind of like focusing on this podcast project that I had been wanting to do, that's been this undercurrent, this, that's running in the background the whole time, life is taking you twisting and turning, and you're following those where it leads. And we followed it to Costa Rica twice in 2021, and we followed it to Mother Ayahuasca and had one of the most amazing experiences of my life. And I will tell you, after that experience, I was so grateful for it. But afterwards, I was clear, I don't really see myself anytime in the near future needing to do that again. And now here we are in, what month are we in? May of 2022. So it's about a year later, and I can feel the call. Like I can feel her calling me. And I mentioned it to G a couple weeks ago or a month ago. Like I'm feeling the call to go back to Costa Rica and sit in ceremony again. And so I'm looking forward to planning that. And again, can talk more about that at another time. But this year, so that was 2021. And then this year, I really felt in a much more settled place in my own mind, in my own heart, in my own physical space. The relationship with G, in the, kind of in the middle of 2021 got cemented as I finally let go of I let go of trying to hold him at bay. And kind of accepted, that this relationship was good and it was nurturing and it was okay. It was like I was allowing myself to say, okay, it's okay that you're in this relationship. And, other people might look at it and completely not understand it, or how or why it works. But I finally was able to let go of that and just allow myself to just feel how yummy and juicy and like nurturing and just like, home and grounded it feels for me. So coming into 2022, that was like settled science, right? Like settled science. And there is no settled science, by the way. So I'm joking when I say that. But at least that was a resolved in my mind where I was letting go of what I was blocking. And I was now into this secure place of what Jessa Reed would call open-handed love, and which I remain in and feels really, really good. But so since some things were settled and the travel bug had been kind of satiated, and this bubbling up of the podcast started coming back. And I was sharing it with G and telling him my ideas and what I wanted to talk about and what I wanted to do. And I'll back up and say, also in the beginning of last summer, I had watched this webinar or training webinar about doing podcasts. And it was a couple of hours of very educated people about producing and doing podcasts, about what it's like to do a podcast. And it's actually the producer who's producing this podcast, and a woman, Blue, from Deja Blue podcast. She was talking about what it's like to do a podcast, and her words I'll never forget, about letting go of the fears and focusing on the creativity that is in each one of us, and that whatever your art is, whether it's painting or whether it's dancing or whether it's speaking or any way that you want to think about being creative, writing, or doing a podcast, that there's something that's trying to come through you from the universe, from the divine, that there's something, you're really just being a channel for whatever is needing or wanting to come through. And that my job is not to like judge it or harness it or do anything except to let it come through. And that you can do things just for the pure joy of it, just for the doing of it. And then I can let go of any idea of like outcome or expectation of anything other than this physical act. Like right now, this physical act, this microphone, this camera, this voice, and that by doing it, the thing, it's creating a vibration in the universe that reverberates to all other beings and raises the vibration so that other people can resonate in that vibration, not even by ever hearing or seeing me, but just the act of me doing it creates a vibration that can be felt and that raises all our own vibration. And that it's almost an obligation for me to do the thing that I'm meant to do. Because by focusing on expanding my heart and my brain and my consciousness and my experience, by focusing on me, that automatically has an effect on everything else. And that, seeing that webinar with those two people, I knew right then and there, like, this is what I was meant to do. This is what I'm meant to do right now. This is not like the crown of my life. This is what I'm meant to do this. And so I will do this. And so it was a matter of just then creating the right time for this to be perfect, to be the right time. And the right time is now. And so that's what's happening now. And I was able to reach out to Andre and set up this experience. And so that's what I'm doing. But I want to also touch base on this idea of focusing on myself, which is, for me, I've spent a lot of my adult years focusing on other people through my work, through getting into healthcare and naturopathic medicine and yoga, opening up a yoga studio and helping people through the company that I worked with before, the wellness company. My goal every day of every life, I would wake up and I'm going to help people. I'm going to help people with their health. I'm going to help people prevent disease. I'm going to, help people save money. I'm going to help people make money. I'm going to help people have more peace and all of these things. And I think that's a noble cause. And it's fine to focus on other people and be in a helping profession and to help people. And we need people like that in the world that have desires and goals and where they're outward focused. But part of that, for me at least, I realize now, was a distraction. It's a distraction from focusing on oneself, on focusing on me. It's so much easier to look at other people and other people's lives and clearly see what's missing or what they need, right? Or how to fix something. And then it also feels good that you're helping. But what are we doing? Really, is it anybody's job other than our own to work on ourselves, to heal ourselves? And part of this transformation leading up to turning 50 and being 50 and beyond is a constant reminding of myself that I don't have to have an outward focus, that I don't have to have a focus on saving people, fixing people, helping people, that I can save myself, that I can help myself, that I can nurture myself, I can love myself, I can grow myself up, I can expand my consciousness, I can do all of the things, and by doing so, I can have an impact on the vibration of everyone else. But I don't have to distract. It's okay. Like, I'm finally giving myself permission. And I was talking to a really, really good friend of mine yesterday, and she said that she felt like I was somebody in her life somebody that had really good boundaries. Like she said, you're like a boundary expert, And I thought, wow, that's really interesting, because that's not necessarily how I would have characterized myself. I have felt more recently that I wanted to work on my boundaries and stop people pleasing. And so actually that's been one of my new focuses is really being able to say no to especially family. It's good. I feel like this is my real work right now, which is being a good daughter, but that's ridiculous. Like, what is a good daughter or a good friend or and that is not what I want to do. I want to be a person that is working on being a little bit better every single day for myself and learning to love and understand myself a little bit more each day, and following what is meant for me, and allowing what is wanting to come through me to come through. and all of that being actually not, like selfish in a negative way, but selfish in a good way. And imagine like if every single person who had the ability to do so would focus on growing themselves up and transforming their fear and pain and triggers and hurt and wounding, transforming that and transmuting that into growth and breakthroughs, and self-love and self-care and regulating their own emotions, our nervous system, regulating our own nervous systems. I just have this image in my mind of a pinball machine, and I feel like we're all the pinballs. And every day we go into, somebody slings the ball into the pinball machine and we're just banging against all these triggers, all these little things. And if you can imagine all the billions of people in the world going out into the pinball machine that is their society or their world or their life, and they're just banging up against all these triggers, bing, bada, bing, 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 bing. And if every person could take time. And again, it's people who have the ability to. I mean, if you're focused on, having enough food to eat, or not, if you're unhoused, you don't have a place to sleep at night, or if you are looking for a job, obviously those things need to come first. But everyone who has the ability, who has safety and food and support and care in their lives, if we were to take that time to focus on understanding our triggers and learning how to respond and instead of react, and having awareness about who we are and listening to our inner knowing and trusting, our own voice and our own inner knowing. I mean, what a place the world would be. And so I've just decided that I'm going to give myself permission to do that work. It was interesting over the last couple of years when people would ask me, oh, what do you do? Like for a living, like, oh, what do you do? Or what do you do with your life? What do you do with your day? And, first the fear or the self-awareness or the, self-judgment about, oh, I don't have a job, or, this feeling like embarrassed that I'm not out there hustling anymore, because that's really what happened when I got a divorce and entered the summer of 2019, is I also made a decision to stop hustling. Like I just let go of the hustle. I let go of all of it. And so then when people ask you, what do you do? It's like, I'm just working on myself. I'm trying to be retired. And it's honestly, I think the most important work I can be doing, not going out and getting a job and trying to make more money, or starting another business, try to make more money and try to, it's like, I feel like I'm doing the work that needs to be done. And it's starting with the innermost core of my being. And so fast forward to, I turned 50 last summer, and turning 50 is no joke. And I was talking about putting this podcast together, and I was talking with my emotional support person, Ashley, and also the producer of this podcast. And I was just saying, nobody ever looks at 50 and wants to be 50. I mean, I remember being every other age besides 50, and you don't necessarily want to be 50. I mean, on one hand, there was a layer of me wanting to be 50 because my father had died at 49 years old. And so being 50 at least meant that I wasn't doomed to a death at 49. But besides that, you don't really want to be 50. And then you find yourself at 50. And one thing I would really like people to know is 50 is awesome. 50 is awesome. And I also know, now that I know that 50 is awesome, I know that 60 is going to be awesome. And I know that 70 can be awesome. It can also not be awesome. But, I think for me, being an example or being an example of what it can be to be 50 and what life at 50 can look like, what you can be up to, what you can be learning, what you can be cracking your brain and your heart open with, and what you can be experiencing, and the knowledge and the joy and the transformation. And I feel like it's the beginning of it is the beginning of a whole new era for me. And I want to talk into a microphone. I want to talk into a microphone. I want to talk into a microphone. I am imagining that the energetic field that I am creating will reverberate around the earth. If somebody listens to this, cool. If I make you laugh, that would be really awesome. If and when I finally get to interview Jessa Reed, that will be my dream come true. And I'm finally doing what I wanted to do for, the third year in a row, which is start a podcast. So I'm doing it. Here's the microphone. There's the camera. I'm talking. And I think that's it.